Hi everybody, welcome to this briefing. We're going to go through 5 Teams phone personas. I'm really excited for this conversation. Alistair and I have been prepping, and there's all sorts of things he's been pulling out of the bag in terms of real world use cases. So let's see if we can get them on the recording. Alistair, did you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Good to be here. At Pure IP, I look after various services within sort of enterprise voice. So I'm looking at the guys that deploy Teams, some of the on-site SBC things, and the project managers. So get involved in this kind of stuff that we're talking about quite frequently.
Awesome. And I'm Tom Bathnot. You might know me from Empowering Cloud. I'm also a solutions director at PRIP Enterprise Voice. So I'm wearing both hats today, which is fun. And a secret insider tip, Alistair's the person I go to when I've got kind of techie, tricky Teams voice phone questions. And PRIP Enterprise Voice over all kind of accounts has done over 2 million users in over 80 countries around the world, OC, DR, local SBC. So there's some real knowledge here being pulled of not just Teams, but way back on the Skype days and like a lot of knowledge here. So as is these briefings, we like to get stuck right in. So 5 personas. Alistair, let's start off with the easy one, right? And the one that I think probably, if we're honest, a lot of the early Teams voice seats and quick wins were knowledge worker. What does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, this is straight out of the playbook, even going back to Skype, really, isn't it? So especially once we hit the COVID years, the knowledge workers were the first ones to come across. They're traditionally sort of office-based, but maybe from COVID, hybrid orientated, but typically sort of desk-based, if you like, with sort of mid sort of requirement in terms of phone functionality. The standard stuff that they get in terms of a DDI per person, and some calling packages, that kind of stuff, voicemail, fairly kind of standard sort of needs. And obviously, again, with these knowledge workers, the bits that underpin them are the same for all of them, really. So we're talking about enterprise voice via Operator Connect more frequently nowadays. What was DR, a little bit of calling plans sort of chucked in. Every once in a while, you get some extra features on these kind of guys where they might need the odd bit of compliance recording, but generally speaking, it's kind of they're after dial tone, and they're after a sort of an enterprise voice system. I think is the best sort of solution.
Yeah, and they're generally, you can move pretty fast with them. Like a lot of them, phone is not mission critical for them. They might have had weird config on the Avaya or the call manager or whatever they're moving from, but they're sort of over it now because they're already kind of soft phone driven, or they're working from home or whatever else. So I've seen increasingly, it'd be interesting to see if you've seen the same, like people getting more and more confident of like, we're just going to do 1,000 users because it'll be fine. Like we've done this loads before. We know OC works. It's all in the cloud. Click, click, click. Away we go.
Yeah, you quite often, especially through those early years in COVID, you saw some big numbers coming across, but also people just chose to kind of get rid of the complexity. This is the kind of type of area where people would say, like, we don't need hunt groups and pickup groups and all that kind of stuff. Look, most of it is just not required. We don't need it. And you have to remember, like, these guys also have got plenty of other different sort of modalities to feed off. They're well into their channels and their chats and all those other different things. So phone is just kind of adding to that. They're not like completely tied to it all the time.
Yeah, and also I think getting more aggressive about you Mr. Knowledge Worker can self-service configure that if you want to. Like you can do your own sim ring or boss admin or whatever you want to do in the client, like go for it kind of thing. Or I've definitely seen migrations where it's like, to your point, we're going to not worry about mapping all the config because loads of it is old and dusty, but we'll do some kind of 2-week post extra service thing to kind of be like, okay, you've been using it for a while now. Are you missing anything you missed? Now we'll quick response reconfigure it for you.
Yeah, that core groups thing was an interesting one there. It's like if on paper, quite a lot of people back then would have said, oh, we don't want to lose our pickup groups or that kind of stuff. Like, okay, well, the way it works now is you have to set your own up, but then actually you bring them onto the system, let them use Teams. They don't set the core groups up because they just find that they don't actually really need them. So
yeah,
I definitely say in this area, it's fairly sort of low complexity, but definitely it's been the big volume one, this one, hasn't it? That's been driving.
I think if you look at the 20 million plus Teams phone seats, a large percentage of that, and I think Ilya said the same in a recent keynote, is knowledge worker. It's a perfect fit. It's very easy. They're probably already using Teams for meeting and internal as well. So there's still a lot out there, and if you've got them, they're a relatively easy win. I think the key thing there is like migration has got easier, porting has got easier, the pressure on that particular user persona has got less. Like if you go back to when 10 years ago when we were first doing this, like phone for everybody was like, oh my god, it can't be down for a minute. Now I feel there's that persona that's a little bit less pressured.
And also, from the cloud PSTN perspective, like over those years, it's expanded and expanded, so you can get a lot of reach from cloud PSTN. But then the great thing about these knowledge workers is that if a group of them are in an office that can't have cloud PSTN, they're sat behind maybe an SBC service or with DR, that kind of stuff. As far as those users are concerned, it all looks the same. They'll have the same experience all around the world, all around the company.
Yeah.
And so that it just feels much nicer. It's always been that aim for like certainly multinationals and global companies to have everything the same everywhere. It's just consistent.
Nice. So what about pre-agent? This is a new term you're dropping on us, Alistair. Talk us through it.
Yeah, this is definitely, well, you could say this is an emerging point, but actually this is something that's been talked about for quite a long time. So even back to the days in Skype, when there was that movement from Skype for Business into Teams, a lot of people unearthed some different functionalities in response groups that they couldn't necessarily put into Teams. And there was quite a lot of discussion around maybe what's called informal contact center or informal call center. So it's basically users who need a bit more than really the enterprise voice feature set provides to them. So the idea here is that those extra features in this kind of area are sort of being stolen a little bit from other areas. It's not really enterprise voice where you would start having a lot of MI information, or really a lot of complex queuing, or a lot of group calling scenarios. Yes, enterprise voice has hunt groups essentially and call queues and that kind of stuff, but that whole environment where you sort of take it up a notch is where the pre-agent comes in. They're people that have got voice workflows that I think more than likely is going to be a voice workload that's either business critical or is pretty important. And again, they're more likely to be working in a group. So it's not just an important number through to one user. It needs to be distributed through those groups. And that changes how that they operate. They kind of need some of those contact center features because they need to collectively be able to see the calls coming through, who's taken them, what the call stats look like, make sure everything's good. But they're not really trying to be a call center or a contact center. They might not be at their desks all the time, for instance. They just need to make sure that business critical workload is dealt with.
Yeah, they wouldn't identify as an agent, but they might be in a logistics organization, and they're sharing they're the point of contact for scheduling or whatever. So calls are super important. They all work together as a team, but they're not a contact center. They're just individuals working in a team to serve that business unit, for example.
Yeah, I think probably when we've had this discussion quite a few times before around this area under the guise of informal contact center. And that does fit here in this pre-agent sort of area. But for me, the more interesting point that seems to be emerging, probably in line as Teams queues has come out there more, is just that it doesn't necessarily have to be a pre-contact center. It's not necessarily they're ever trying to be a contact center or a call center. They just workloads in voice are just important. They never won't be important, but they are definitely important.
Yeah, and you made an interesting observation in the prep around this, that a lot of projects now, the knowledge worker, that they're using phone, but they're not using it like every day, every minute. And actually this pre-agent power user phone first role, the people that are left using the phone really, really need the phone. So actually, these are the people that can start to see some business value from Q's app, from AI, Copilot, transfers, summaries in phone calls, because their phone is a key part of their kind of comm suite.
Yeah, you mentioned around the SLAs, and if you rolled back quite a few years, there was some pretty tight SLAs that were required. Contact center type downtimes that they were really wanting out of enterprise voice. But as it moved into this big knowledge worker sector, the inference wasn't really there, or the importance wasn't really there to require those kind of SLAs. But as those sort of PSTN call levels might have dropped a little bit in the knowledge worker, it's almost like they're getting a bit of a resurgence now through pre-agent, because that's very important to them. They need those PSTN calls. They need those voice workloads to be embedded into how they're working and into teams. And so, yeah, it's just kind of carving out a nice important area. I mean, we might see in future SLAs get attached to different types of users. Who knows? Because you could definitely see knowledge workers and pre-agents, they need different things from the system.
Yeah, and this feels like a big area of investment for Microsoft, like both in the AI enabling Teams phone specifically, so the transcriptions, the summaries, the summary on transfer, some of the IP phone work they're doing, things like Q's app on the IP phone and AI on the IP phone. It feels like it's an area of focus for Microsoft where they're like, we've got knowledge worker nailed, well proven. We're in these organizations where we've done all the knowledge workers, and now we've got these business units or these scenarios where they need a little bit more. And to your point about this, like traditionally we might have had to jump straight to contact center just to get a feature, because we didn't have the feature in the kind of core teams.
Yeah, and we've seen some interesting use cases for these in recent sort of months, and pretty much since the Q's app kind of came to the fore. Again, I was expecting this to be a bit more of an informal contact center, like a pre-agent that is just getting towards contact center, but not quite. I mean, we've seen some companies adopt the Teams premium licenses across the board. Because they can see some of the different things it's adding. So when you're adding the Teams Premium and you're getting that Q's app experience, it's not necessarily just about what that changes in your Teams client in terms of the way the call looks and how you can interact with the team. It also adds a layer of MI in there that gives you a better understanding of what's happening. And that MI, even though it's not necessarily quite contact center level, it's still enough to drive some quality assurance into some of those voice workloads, to have some visibility and to optimize those. If those voice workloads are important to you, and say, for instance, it's a front of house type one that you want to make sure your customer experience is good when you're coming through, but it still isn't a contact center, then great. You've got this nice experience where you can make sure that, say, front of house have got to hand off to another point, then you can see the calls. You've also got the management information saying, well, we have this many calls drop. So we need to actually make sure that our staffing is correct. All that kind of information that just wasn't really there as part of like enterprise voice previously.
Yeah, there's been you mentioned front of house, there's been a kind of resurgence of exciting options on attendant console as well, with the new AI and ACS solutions from some of the partners as well, where again, they need that little bit more power.
Yeah, definitely. I think that has been an interesting area as people are doing more and more with Teams, taking more and more calls, maybe putting more and more volumes in. It's these kind of different use cases that are a little bit beyond what core enterprise voice, or what people know as core enterprise voice, are the interesting cases here. And like that's the kind of front of house is an interesting one. Probably sits kind of in this pre-agent sort of area.
Yeah. And then you've got agents, like that's a classic, right? So that's you're a contact center user, but there's a range there, right? There's kind of basic, and then there's crazy advanced dedicated, and you've got a range of options here. So like in some ways, the Q's app is that it could be the very start of that journey. I think team certified contact centers, which there are a bunch, and again, there's a lot of work being done there with the latest contact centers to do clever stuff. Then you've got your traditional dedicated contact centers, and I know Pure IP, Enterprise Voice services like those big dedicated contact centers, obviously queues, and the ecosystem contact centers as well.
Yeah, I think the options are kind of endless in this area now. Like you mentioned, the teams certified contact centers over the last couple of years. That one's really grown. It took quite a long time for that to get embedded. I think there was a lot of work going on with APIs and a lot of almost like pre-work to make the service work now. But there's loads of them now, so you can go to quite a few different companies for that have different things that they're prioritizing. So that there's pretty much a size that fits for most companies that want that Teams contact center. But as you mentioned as well, then yeah, you can quite easily make the jump into a completely separate contact center if that's what you want. You might be going for some scale or some really heavy customization. Then you might make.
And we've got SIP trunking directly into some of those dedicated contact centers as well, and kind of pre-configured trunks. And also you can split call ranges between the team scenario and the contact center scenario as well.
Yeah, that's the big one. I think it's the split that makes this so much easier. If your numbers are all jumbled up between enterprise voice and contact center, you might have them between knowledge.
Yeah, you put all the good numbers, all the 000s into the contact center.
Yeah, and if it's all modeled, then yeah, taking them and being able to kind of in the cloud basically just divert them to all these different services, and that's pretty important.
And then you've got Microsoft's kind of dedicated contact center option, Dynamics 365 Contact Center, which we were very early on doing the direct routing in Azure communication services kind of scenario, which is a slightly trickier config. And soon that Teams phone extensibility will allow our operator connect numbers or DRAS or anything else to pump through to that contact center and some of the ecosystem contact centers as well.
Yeah, that one that's an interesting one when that's kind of fully out there and fully embedded. Just for companies that have got Dynamics and have gone all in on Microsoft and are looking to extend what Dynamics is doing into contact center, it feels like a win to just have that Teams PSTN enterprise voice sat there already with that layer of cloud PSTN and SBCs are already there, and you're just bringing it into your contact center with a kind of fairly low code option.
Yeah, it definitely makes it easier for the end user customer to configure as well, because they're doing all the configuration in the Teams admin center, which is nice.
Yeah, I mean, there's enough complication in what you'll be doing in Dynamics and all those call flows and all the kind of contact center stuff. So yeah, taking some easy wins from it would be good, I think.
Nice. And then our next two. So again, things you probably hear about, but things that Teams has been pushing into more and more often. So common area is really interesting. You've got some really good customers that have really stretched what they do with common area manufacturing and things like that as well. So how would you kind of define that scenario?
The common area one, it was quite a challenge for Teams when it was in early days, because in my opinion, both these personas really are about almost like a lightweight experience from Teams and Teams voice, coupled with a device experience.
Yeah, it's a device-first scenario, isn't it? In a lot of cases, exactly. for the frontline on the run, on the mobile or the tablet or dedicated device, and for the common area, by definition, a physical phone.
And that took a little bit of a while to get going, I think, didn't it really? So like the Teams phones have gone from strength to strength. When they first started, especially when we were back at 3 pips and all that kind of stuff, that it was a little bit more challenging. And as it's gone on, there's quite a lot of things that you can do with the common area phones. You can hot desk them, or you can manage them better in Teams now. You can reutilize your old phones from SIP Gateway much more easily, and I think there's quite a lot of options out there just to make sure you've got that. It's kind of like a mid persona. It's not really a user type. It's a non-named kind of solution that sits in between everything. But you've got the run at it now. You can have them on factory floors for shared people. You can have for shared workers. You can have them in your receptions, your lobbies. You can use them in SIP Gateway. You can use the native Teams phones. You can kind of lock them down or have them open in terms of features. So yeah, a shared device like that. I think that probably the thing here is its devices, and it's getting into sort of like this shared area as you start to progress towards like a frontline worker, I think.
Yeah, and for that common area, you've got proper Team certified phones, but you've also got Team SIP Gateway and compatible phones for that scenario. And
Yeah.
Pure IP Enterprise Voice also runs SIP, like our own SIP gateways on our own infrastructure. So you could actually run stock SIP phones if you wanted to, if you just want a really basic call in, call out, or you've got special line of business phones like they're fire hardened or they're those steel in the wall phone type things, or elevator phone, whatever it may be.
That's right. When you get into certain verticals there, some of these common area phones and maybe frontline worker kind of devices, they might have been there a long time, and there's also less of an appetite to be ripping those out and changing them, because actually they don't need to do anything more than they did before. They're not especially difficult to manage. They just need to integrate with what you've got there. So yeah, you've got the SIP gateway, you've got the Teams phones, you can replace stuff. But yeah, again, like via Pure IP enterprise voice services, we can pull those in as like a standard SIP registration, and then connect them back to the same cloud that Operator Connect and Direct Routing as a Service is going into, and then pump it back into Teams. So again, just makes it part of that whole experience, and really gives it a fairly similar experience to common area if you were doing it on like a SIP gateway, that kind of thing.
Nice. And then last but not least, Frontline. Microsoft felt like they put a bit of a focus on this. So they brought some features through. There's a reduced cost SKU for Frontline as well. So it's half the price of the regular Teams phone SKU, which is interesting.
I think that was the winner. That's what this really needed at this kind of level. Like I mentioned about like lightweight, and that's really what this is. They're not like the knowledge workers that are sat in amongst Teams chats and channels all day long. They're utilizing they're interfacing with Teams probably via some of the devices, like deck phones, wireless phones, maybe devices off the end of ATAs. Even mobile connect, like mobile phones and a mobile sort of workforce type of stuff here.
Yeah, so mobile connect being the ability to take your fixed line and have it also ring on an eSIM, so a physical mobile device over GSM mobile network, but connected to Teams.
Yeah, so like you're still taking all of your numbers and your sort of voice orientated workflows, you're still pumping them through Teams, but you're modifying it a little bit just to suit those scenarios. Those guys aren't being able to use some of the soft phones and all that kind of stuff all the time. You tend to see a lot of device sharing and stuff in this area too, like with deck phones that are for a department, that kind of stuff. So you're into sort of shared licenses. But yeah, that frontline worker, I think the license that came about as part of this, and then like the price point on that really started working for some of the retails, the factories, the kind of social workers, that kind of stuff, and it really opened up a really useful area to kind of unlock all these different areas of companies.
Awesome. Well, hopefully that's useful for people. Like if you can think about your organization and how you might break down your users, that hopefully will help you to then think about your project and what you need, like beyond the knowledge worker, because the knowledge worker is pretty easy in a lot of cases. But to do with the complete Teams phone journey, you're going to have these edge cases in different industries, different verticals, different organizations. Some will have more of them and some will have less of them. I know we're starting to see quite a lot come through now where they did the knowledge workers, they've done the first wave, but they haven't yet decommed the PBX because they've got all this stuff hanging around that's like, oh, these have a weird requirement. And that's kind of some of the most interesting stuff we're doing at the moment, I think, because you're getting into different devices and different scenarios and kind of pushing Teams with things like the Qs app and some of the third-party solutions as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Alistair, thanks so much for sharing. Always appreciate your from the ground real world experience. It's really good to hear. And if anybody's got any questions around this or thoughts or feedback or want to hear more about Pure IP Enterprise Voice, feel free to get in touch and we can pass you on to the right person. Thanks a lot.
Thanks.